What is a plateau and how do you know if you're having one? Plateau is a state of little or no change following a period of activity or continuous progress. So in terms of the gym, what this means is it is simply when you're not able to progressively overload an exercise in the gym with either weight, reps, or doing better form compared to last time. If you're having a plateau, what you'll see is a flattening or even sometimes regression in an exercise. An example of this is if you're doing leg press and over a 6-week period you have been increasing the weight, reps or form each time and every week. Every time you do it, you have seen progression, but on the 7th week, you match what you did last week. You do the leg press again on the 8th week and you regress the reps you're normally able to do. On the 9th week, you decide you'd do it again just to make sure you weren't having a bad session. But once again, you regress. This is what a plateau on an exercise looks like. Most often, it would not be as obvious as this, as normally when you have a plateau, you normally just make up for it with worse form and more momentum just to match the reps or increase the weight. But you're not actually using the muscle more, you're just using momentum more. But if you are honest and if you standardize your form, it would be clear that you're no longer progressing and you are now stalling or even regressing. So what do you do if you're no longer progressing? In this video, I'm going to answer that question for you. The first thing you can do is take a deload. I will link a video down below which explains what a deload is and how to do it if you're not sure. In short, it is just a rest week from the gym with the sole goal of minimizing fatigue. So the next week you're in the gym, you can begin progressing again. If you're stalling on many exercises for many different muscle groups all of a sudden, then it would be a good idea to run a deload, as it's likely your whole body is fatigued. So the only real way to get rid of the systemic fatigue properly is just to rest. If you're finding that it is just one muscle that is fatigued, then you can reduce the load sets you do on that exercise or on that muscle and try and reduce the overall volume that muscle is lifting for at least a session or two. Another way to overcome a plateau is just swapping out the exercise that you currently have that is not progressing anymore for a similar movement that is fresh and you can run it for progression. An example of this is if you have done barbell bench for 4 months, but now when you go to bench, your shoulder and wrist hurt, you don't feel the chest and you aren't progressing, then there's no real reason for you to keep the exercise in, as it's doing more harm than good to you. Instead, swap out the barbell bench press for a similar movement pattern, such as a machine chest press. By doing this, you can start fresh on a new exercise, which you have not built up the strength for it, so it'll be easier to progress at the start. The next way to overcome a plateau is by standardizing your form. This is very important for knowing if you're actually having a plateau. Standardizing form means that you're just doing the exercise the same way every time you do it. Your range of motion is the same and you control the weight the same. What this allows you to do is accurately and fairly compare last week's weight to this week's weight and make the decision, did I progress today? If you see your reps or weight has gone up and your form has stayed the same, then you have progressed. But if you find that if you increased the reps or weight on the last 2 reps, you've used more swinging than you did last week, then you haven't really progressed and you could actually be starting to plateau. But because your logbook says you are progressing, you don't recognize it as a plateau. What I recommend you do for exercises is have a logbook, which you can have just as an app or just write it down on paper. The next time you go into the gym and do any exercise, put down a rough idea of what your form should be like on this exercise, such as pausing at the top or bottom, making a slower negative or something similar to that. And every time you do that exercise again, you replicate that form you've wrote down. Once you do your set, you can give yourself a rating out of 5 of how close that set was to your ideal form that you wrote down. By doing this, you should know if you're really progressing. The next way to overcome a plateau is looking at variables outside the gym. For this section, I'm going to try and keep it a bit shorter as it's pretty obvious. But if you don't know, you don't know. You need to be keeping consistent diet and sleep outside the gym so that your performance inside the gym can stay consistent and actually allow you to make progression. If you find yourself staying up late, getting little sleep, and the next day in the gym you're wondering why you're not progressing, you need to look back at all the variables that could have played a role. Examples are sleep, diet, hydration, stress, and there's many more that you can name. Then when you do this, if you find something is really standing out at you, then it is likely that's the reason for your poor session. Try and minimize it so you're able to stay consistent. The final way you can overcome a plateau, which we'll cover in this video, is by eating more. An easy way to come plateaus in the gym is just increasing the calories that you're eating. This allows you to have more energy, allows you to recover better, allows you to push harder. It shouldn't be done in excess, as then it won't actually be from the muscle getting bigger, but because you have more mass on your body. So if you are going to increase your calories, I would increase it a max of 500 so that you're actually able to have more energy going into your session, which can allow you to start progressing again. Don't do this if you're cutting, obviously, as if you're cutting, you need to expect some plateaus in the gym as you weigh less physically and you have less energy. But if you are cutting and you're taking massive regressions in the gym, this is probably a sign that you're cutting too hard and you probably want to increase the calories a little bit more. That is everything we're going to cover in today's video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll answer them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.